Welcome to Disruption Dialogues Podcast Season 2. Listen to the influential leaders and trailblazers from around the world as they share invaluable insights to navigating the fifth industrial revolution.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Disruption Dialogues Season 2. I'm Sarwant Singh, President and Chief Commercial Officer at MarketsandMarkets. And I'm in conversation with a young and upcoming thought leader in the energy sector, Daniela Haldy, Global Vice President and Head of Industrial Business Unit for Energy and Utilities at SAP. In today's episode, we'll together explore the exciting and ever-evolving landscape of the future of energy. We'll delve into the trends, innovations, and digital transformative shifts that are shaping the way we produce, consume, and think about energy. The energy sector is undergoing a profound transformation as we move towards a more sustainable and efficient future. We'll transition from roughly about 80% plus fossil fuel-based economy to a two-thirds renewable energy supply by 2040, which means global annual energy investments are set to double from today's $2.5 trillion to over and above $5 trillion by 2030. We in M&M describe the future of energy with the 4 Ds. Let me share a quick slide to show that. So as you see on this slide, we describe the future of energy around decarbonize. So we see new different types of fuels like hydrogen, battery technology, but also development of CCUs. We see decentralization. As a matter of fact, we believe, for example, Australia mentioned they'll never build another gigawatt power plant because there'll be more decentralization of power. So we'll see microgrids, renewables, solar, wind coming in, which are set at site and consumed at site. We'll have digitalization and automation, and that's something we'll talk to Daniela more about. And we'll have what we call democratization of energy. What do we mean by democratization of energy? I work in the foresighting team at M&M, and we believe that maybe in 50, 60, 70 years from today, energy might be free. We could also have scenarios, for example, if we look at Middle East, where they have abundance of solar and also have abundance of fossil fuels. You combine that two together, and this region could be localized and could be the leader in production of hydrogen, for example, green hydrogen in particular. So with that, first, let me ask Daniela, warm welcome. Do you agree with our definition of future of energy?
I definitely do, and we at SAP use almost exactly the same words. I think democratization is a really good term because it shows that we are opening up the markets and that for end customers to actually participate in them as well. If I look at utilities, what we see is them building up more renewable capacity, but at the same time making sure that they also work with the decentralized energy capacity by the end customers. And that's really also a term where democratization comes into play. One thing that I would like to add to that slide, I think, is the term of deregulation. I think we see that across the markets as well. So opening up, really coming from integrated market models to deregulated market models, where we see more and more competition ongoing. A good example, for example, is Japan, when we look at markets.
Thank you, Daniela. I can add a 50D to my definition here. Thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about energy transition and peak oil. Again, I'm just going to share a slide that our analysts put together. As you can see on this slide, we seem to have very different views globally. If you look at the IEA view, they've got multiple scenarios. They believe, we'll be down from 105 million barrels per day to maybe around 17 in an accelerated scenario. But then when you see the projection, for example, from OPEC, they think peak oil is a little further away. We in Markets and Markets thinks that peak oil is maybe around about 28, 29, 30 time frame. And that's because, we'll have cars, 30% of cars and vehicles will be electric. We'll see huge growth in renewables. So maybe if I could just ask you, what do you think about peak oil, and do you see carbon resilience in the future?
So from our end, of course, we are focusing more on technology. When it comes to peak oil, the observation that we make with our customers and what we see surrounding us is that we still need hydrocarbons for thousands of products surrounding us. And there needs to be a replacement or material that can actually replace that usage in our day-to-day lives. I think there will be more to come, or more investment also to come, specifically in renewables. And this can be biofuels, but also other sorts of renewables, in order to make sure that we are actually able to make that transition to net zero.
Thank you, Daniela. Daniela, how do you see the role of technology in this energy transition?
So from my perspective, this is really the ultimate enabler, because everything that we have to do in every business model that's newly created is fundamentally based on technology. I'll briefly make an example around the future of energy generation, which moves from centralized energy generation to more and more decentralized energy generation. And in utilities, or for utilities, this really means providing digital solutions and platforms in order to, first of all, understand which of my assets or which of my customers' assets are out there, how much energy are they generating, and how can I use those additional energy flexibilities to be traded. And this overall process needs to be connected in a digital way. And for that, we need technology. That's really just one example. Or, for example, in the future, we will see more energy communities. We have some already in Australia or Austria, for example. One startup we're working with is called Exnaton, and they really make it possible that energy can be shared within that community. But all of this wouldn't be possible without technology. And of course, we see that in the oil and gas sector as well, when we want to introduce new capability in operations or electrifications of offshore platform, local onshore production. That's all based on technology and digitalization. So we can't live without it.
Thank you, Daniela. I agree with you there on that. Maybe let's just explore a little bit about the macro world of utilities and oil and gas companies, the sector that you work in. We see a trend where the boundaries and definition of utilities are changing. For example, you would have never said oil companies are a utility, but if you look at companies like Shell, BP, they used to basically make molecules, and now they are also buying and selling electrons like electric vehicle charging, for example. How do you define the utility of the future?
So for us, a utility of the future really is a company that generates energy or electrons in any way or form. And for us, we see that our oil and gas customers start transitioning, investing into biofuels, but also into renewable capacity. Those can be big geothermal installations, solar installations, hydrogen, something you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, but also oil and gas customers acquiring utilities to understand the customer business of the B2C customers. They formerly haven't had such a focus on. So this is a new field for them. This is something where they start investing in. Nevertheless, they still have their commodity business, which they will continue to run, as we've also just seen in your peak oil overview and chart. So as long as really the demand continues to grow, we need to make sure to be able to serve the market. And this will just be with a mix of commodity resources, but also renewable resources, until we really can make that term.
Thanks, Daniela. Earlier in this conversation, you talked about deregulation and you talked about competition. I'm an electrical engineer, believe it or not. Interestingly, there are thousands and thousands of utilities. I mean, in US alone, there are 3,000 utilities. But lately, we've also seen a trend, like, for example, Enel in Italy. It's gone from being a regional utility to being a pan-European, Latin American-based utility to now being a global utility. So how do you see the landscape when it comes to future utilities? Will they be larger, bigger, more consolidated, or continue to be fragmented like it is today?
That really depends on the market, I think. So, of course, a few years ago, we've seen a global merger and acquisitions trend in utilities, where particularly the large players acquired in some of the other countries subsidiaries. Examples of that, you mentioned it, is Enel, but also E.ON, Iberdrola, JERA, or RWE. While those gigantic utilities are consolidating, we also observe that still there are specific requirements for the market roles that we have, for example, in Germany, where we have focused retailers, but also distribution operators or meter operation vendors. So that's going to remain because there's a specific niche that's going to be served by those customers. Of course, they all focus on profitability and higher margin business, so that we'll see a bit of a change here in business. And it also depends on the strategic direction of each of the utilities and the future deliverables percentage-wise of renewables and what subsegment they really want to compete in. So I think we'll see a mix of both.
Then let's focus a little bit on that third D of the definition of future of energy, which is digital. How do you define digital transformation within the energy sector? And tell us a little bit about the products and services within SAP that are enabling this shift.
So far, us, it's really increasing process efficiency. First of all, getting rid of all manual processes, of course, making it possible to scale faster and support new business models. So for that, for example, just to make a few examples of where we see this happening in the market, there is a lot of workload and effort around regulatory requirements, being able to support them. For example, the market communication piece in the deregulated market. Those are market messages that need to be processed according to a defined SLA. And of course, there's a lot of manual workload and tasks that generates workloads by end users. And this is something that can be digitalized and that SAP actually covers. For the German market, for example, we cover the market communication between all of the market roles, but also we provide technology where partners, so our ecosystem, can then build on and enhance. Another example, of course, is the whole topic of smart meters coming up. So when we have smart meters, we want to be able to actually collect the data and put them in a meaningful business context. So this really means being able to understand the generation and consumption patterns of the customers, being able to provide better offerings to them, cross or upsell. So we really want to have the 360-degree view as the utilities to be able to serve our customers better. And this is where SAP comes in and provides that end-to-end process from really meter or lead to cash, being able to cover all of the end customer's requirement. And then in the best case, stepping into distributed energy resources, really, where end customers own assets that generate energy, which they can use again to do a bit of load shedding when it's required, when we have peak demands in the grid. Of course, we also see that on the oil and gas side, where, for example, we provide an application that's called joint venture accounting, and that allows to really billing an account between two companies coming together for a bigger project. And we see lots of our oil and gas customers really coming together, investing into big facilities, generation facilities here.
Thank you, Daniela. We see in Markets and Markets that in the future, OT, IT, ET, and IIoT integrating in the digital industrial world. Do you agree and or disagree with this? And where does SAP play?
So, of course, SAP historically plays on the IT side. But in the future, because all of the scenarios from a utilities perspective that I was talking about, looking at decentralized energy generation, require more insights and real-time insights into what's actually happening on the OT side. So what you want to do is bring those worlds closer together to be able to make business decisions on what's really happening in the grid at any point in time. And on the grid side, you want to have the information on how effective are, for example, my distributed energy resource programs or demand response programs that I use in order to shed load or make sure that we mitigate peak demands. So this is something where IT and OT coming together is really powerful. And I'm just returning from DistribTech in Orlando that happened last week, and conversations are really all centered around how can we bring both worlds together. So this is a business problem each and every customer requires, and something where we as an IT provider need to get closer with our OT friends like Siemens, GE Vernova, and others that are playing on the OT side, really, to make sure that we can serve customers better, but also be able to more efficiently stabilize our grid with more renewables that are intermittent by nature.
Thank you, Daniela. That's very well summarized. People normally struggle to link OT, IT, and the changing world of IoT together. You did really well there. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Could you give us an example of potential benefits or cost savings that can be achieved through a digital energy solution? Or maybe even better, if you can share some case story or success story within SAP's digital solution that enabled it.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe let me start with a note on AI, because we all talk about AI now, and it's a big fuss right now, but actually it's implemented, AI capabilities are implemented in our systems since a longer time already. So two examples from the utility side, for example, are implausible meter reading checks or outsorted billing documents. And here really the back office agent spends a significant amount of time in clarification of those cases, making sure that we have better results in the end. And we have that deployed within multiple customers. And what you can really see is that the reduction of manual work is between 80 to 90% by leveraging those AI technology pieces. So this is really a huge increase of efficiency when you look at those companies. And of course, I also have a few customer examples that I can think of. For example, from Spain, CHC Energia, they actually implemented our software, and they cover their end-to-end with that meter to cash process. And really what they obtained out of it is a faster time to market of 25%, but also improvement in billing capabilities by 50%. So I think those are really tangible results, and we got more customer examples like that, where it becomes visible. If you have a digital solution that goes end to end, you can see those efficiency gains and process gains.
Thank you, Daniela. Daniela, tell me a little bit about what specific solutions does SAP offer for asset management within the utility sector?
So from an SAP perspective, we of course cover the end-to-end life cycle of enterprise asset management. This really includes building an asset, making sure that we have a respective investment plan in place before we do that. And then when the asset is built, that we have health predictions on the asset lifetime, that we make sure to really apply reliability-centered maintenance, make sure to always track and trace how's our asset performing, how can we optimize it. And we do work with a lot of partners also that build on top of our solutions, like Copperleaf, for example, and others. And the idea is really to make sure that, because assets is the most asset intensive, or we are living in the most asset intensive industry with oil, gas, energy, and utilities customers. And there are so many day-to-day challenges that we cover from an SAP perspective. Another one for the oil and gas side would be also our new application that we jointly developed with another partner called Wipro, that is really the shutdown, turnaround, and outage process. So here we really want to speed up the time of where we have a shutdown of our asset and make sure to maintain it in a proper way.
Thanks, Daniela. Let's talk a little about sustainability. When we talk about sustainability, I guess we somehow underestimate what digital can do to sustainability or enable sustainability. Any examples or thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think sustainability is a wide used term. I would like to differentiate a bit between SAP covers, of course, or helps cross industry, all of the customers to really record, report, and act upon their sustainability goals. For example, to fulfill their ESG KPIs they have, or to be able to really understand what's my carbon footprint and how can I react to it. We have a technology that we communicated last year at Sapphire, technology piece we bring into our technology that's called Green Ledger. So this will be next to the financial reporting, be a reporting on carbon emissions per product. So that's something that we provide cross industry. But of course, we also ship solutions that have a deep verticalization for oil, gas, energy, and utilities customers. Example of that would be if you want to track and trace your hydrocarbon supply chain, we provide a blockchain technology that really helps you to identify the following 50 molecules are green and 30 of them are gray and the others are blue, for example. And at the end of my supply chain, the consistency of those molecules has changed, because that's, again, important for reporting. Or another example from the water segment, because in utilities, water is part of our overall segment. We also provide a smart water platform. So several technology components that allow a smart water platform. And this really combines smart metering consumption data, SCADA information, water quality measures to improve the water quality and identify leakages across the pipe network, because that's always broad and that's a huge difficulty that we face in the water industry.
Very interesting, Daniela. You talk about this blockchain technology. I've heard about it, and you're actually spot on. When it comes to hydrogen, there's so many different colors of hydrogen, and which one do you know is most energy efficient? And then especially when you're doing well-to-wheel analysis, I guess, absolutely critical. That's an interesting example. Thank you. Coming to the last question, Daniela, but maybe personal about yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I believe from very little that I know of you, you're a champion of talent development. You are yourself a very incredibly young leader, but you've been championing women empowerment in the industry. So tell us a little bit about some of these personal things that are important to you and how you're championing these within your industry sector.
Thank you very much for the compliment first. So what I did throughout my career is really been focused on delivering good results in the role that I hold at this specific point in time. I really never forced things to happen. And I also never did a job just to do another job. So I think this was a bit of my key success criteria. And then I strongly, of course, believe in women uplifting other women. So when we come to that piece of diversity, that's super important for me. And really acting as an amplifier, because the behavior that you bring to the table has an effect on others, positively or negatively. And you always have to be aware of that. And from my perspective, age really is just a number, and it comes down to the diverse experience that you actually have and how you make sure that you manage change in your role, how you're able to get all of your employees on deck to reach a certain goal. So that's something that always helped me. And when it comes to having maybe an advice, for me, it has always been a success with my team by putting diverse leadership into place, because diverse leadership automatically fosters a diverse team. That's at least what I experienced. And then we are always open to constructive discussions. I think the worst thing is if we have an expert coming to the table and no one would react in a way, because experts always have a certain opinion and the best results come out of those constructive conversations. So this is really something that I'm fostering with my team, and that worked well. And of course, I do support coaching, mentoring within my company a lot. I do that for startups, did that for SAP IO Foundry as well. So several activities that I participate in.
Thank you, Daniela. It's amazing. Your passion really comes out in your interview and in your thought leadership. Thank you for very much for that. With this, thank you everybody for listening in. I was in conversation with Daniela Sellmann, Global Vice President and Head of Industry Business Unit for Energy and Utilities Industries at SAP. Thank you, Daniela, once again. Stay tuned for such interesting episodes on Disruption Dialogues.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to know how you can navigate and thrive in this disruptive era, subscribe to Disruption Dialogues on your go-to podcast channels and stay tuned for more interesting episodes.